Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. As you may have already guessed it from the title of the video, I have bought myself a 2022 Tesla Model 3 Performance. So I'm going to structure this video in three parts: the how, the why, and what's next. So without wasting too much time, let's get to it. So in this video, I am not going to be doing any reviews of a Tesla Model 3 Performance. What I want to do is to briefly describe the ordering process, the reason why I chose Tesla Model 3 Performance, and what I'm going to do with it. Alright, so very briefly on the ordering process, and honestly it could not get any simpler. In fact, I think every manufacturer should be doing exactly what Tesla is doing, and I really hope that the future of car sales will be exactly that. There's no reason to visit dealerships and talk to any dealers and discuss or bargain about any prices. The process is as simple as going online, ordering the car that you want, putting a very small down payment. I believe Tesla does $250 right now, and within a matter of minutes you receive a confirmation email that your car has been ordered. Then within a matter of a couple of weeks you will receive your VIN, at which point your car is being built, and the whole process from beginning to the delivery probably took about a month, maybe a few days over a month. Now, that varies depending on the model that you order, whether it's a short range, a long range, or a performance, particular for Model 3. That varies because apparently they seem to prioritize performance or more expensive models over the mid-range and low-range priced cars. Now Model S is a slightly different scenario altogether, as well as Model X's. They seem to have super long wait times right now. But again, I got pretty lucky with Model 3 Performance, and it took me only about 30 to 33 days, I believe, something along those lines, from the order to the delivery. Now the delivery itself, it was super simple and very, very fast. I arrived at the dealership. My car was already prepped and ready, sitting outside. I didn't really have to talk to anybody. I had to load up an app on my phone, accept the delivery. There was a folder with a couple of pages sitting on the windshield of the car. I did my inspection of the car, and the one was near me. They call it, I believe, a touchless delivery now because of the whole COVID thing, and so I inspected the car inside and outside. Probably took me a lot longer than anything else. Just wanted to make sure there's no issues with the car, and obviously talking to people and reading different forums. And by the way, my dad also has a Model Y Performance, so I already knew kind of what to expect from that. Just want to make sure all the panel gaps were fine and there are no scratches or paint chips or anything inside the car as far as the panels. Everything was intact, and everything was. There were a couple of very minor things, not even worth discussing. There is one paint chip on one of the pillars, which is getting addressed in a couple of weeks. I made an appointment, but other than that, I was worried a little bit about the quality potentially, and nothing that I can even really stress myself about. There were maybe a couple of millimeters here and there on a couple of panels, but other than that, again, it's nothing major, nothing that my wife doesn't have on her Acura or I didn't have on my previous cars. Now again, your mileage may vary. I've seen some cars that have pretty decent sized gaps between the panels, between the roof and the pillar. The hood or the trunk was slightly misaligned. So there are situations where you may have those issues, but lucky for me, I did not have any of those issues. Now, after I did my inspection, like I said, there was a folder on the dashboard. 4 signatures. I brought it in, gave it to one of the sales associates, and I left. So all in all, from me arriving at the dealership, or if you want to call it a dealership, because there's really no dealers there. They're just a couple of associates working there to mostly just guide you and help you with anything you want. No one's talking about any prices or or anything else unless you have questions about car features and things like that. So I handed in my paperwork and I left, and it took me a little over half an hour, and again, only because I was inspecting the car on my own and I wanted to make sure everything was fine. Now this brings us to the question of why. Why did I buy a Tesla, and specifically Tesla Model 3 Performance? So let's take a quick step back, and for those of you who subscribe to my channel obviously know that a couple of years ago, yeah, it's been that long since I've had and sold my Camaro 1 Elite. It was a great car, and again, not to recap what I've said before, but my kids have grown up a little bit. It was a little hard for them to to get in and out in the back seat and sit there for too long of a period of time. So unfortunately, I had to sell that, and you may remember I mentioned that I did buy, or I should say lease, an Audi SQ5. It was a nice SUV. I was thinking of driving that for a little while until I figure out what was my next step. And what happened was I only drove it for about a year. I went in for my service for an oil change, and I was browsing the floor and I did see an Audi e-tron. So I started looking at it, and started talking to one of my sales guys, and they offered me a really great deal on an Audi e-tron. And yes, you're probably not aware, but I traded in my SQ5 for an Audi e-tron. So this is not my first EV. However, the days of the e-tron was very short-lived. I only drove it for about 8 months. Now, it was a great car. It was very luxurious. Pretty much anything that's Q8 has, e-tron had. Again, very smooth, very nice ride. It was a very heavy car. So handling, obviously, of an e-tron was not the best. It was more than 5,500 pound car. So yeah, it was definitely pretty heavy. And you would think for a car of that size and the battery size that it had, and it had a pretty substantial size battery, the range on it was only, well, according to the manufacturer, about 220 miles. I never got that on a full charge. As close as I got, I think, was about 205 maybe 210-ish. But that would be a stretch on the warm weather, obviously. So we live in a very interesting time right now where you can buy a car, drive it for a year or two, and then sell it for a profit. Something that hasn't been heard of in a very long time. But that's exactly what happened, and the reason why we're sitting right here talking about Tesla. So the used car market right now is very hot. So and that is exactly what happened to me. I did a little research and I found out that I can actually sell my e-tron and make some money on it, and that got me thinking. I got a really good offer from my local Audi dealer on my car. I sold it and I ordered a Tesla. So this brings us to why. Yes, I sold it because it's a very good used car market, and I was able to make some money on an Audi. But there are a couple other reasons why I did sell my Audi. Not because I didn't like it, but there were different things that just I was looking in a car. Now, I like sports cars. I've had many different high performance cars over my life. I had multiple very heavily modified STIs. I obviously had a Camaro 1 Elite that I loved working on and driving, and the performance is always there, and something that I absolutely appreciate in a car. Not just I like luxury in the cars, but it's not priority. I do, as you know from my channel, I I love motorcycles. I love cars. I love working on them. I love modifying them. That's just, it's my passion. And unfortunately, Audi just did not have any of that. Now it is an EV, obviously, so there's not much you can do as far as the exhaust and the engine performance and things like that. But you can do other things with it too, which is eventually will bring me to the next question on what's next for my Tesla. But so one of the things that bothered me a little bit about the Audi was not necessarily a range anxiety, because I don't take it on very long trips. However, if I was to do that, and not even talking about super long trips, but even a couple hundred miles, one way, you get in a situation where you have to start looking for public charging stations, which are not very heavily populated here, and I live in the tri-state area, so you would think there would be a lot of EV charging stations, but unless you have a Tesla, and their superchargers are everywhere, something like Electrify America and some other public stations are very far few in between. So with that being said, taking an e-tron on the very long trips would require a lot of planning. You have to plan your routes, do some calculations on potential mileage between each one before each charge is required. So that was one of the major things. So between the lackluster of performance and the inability of not worry or think about where my next charge will be, other than my home, of course, and local Electrify America stations, that was something always on the back of my mind. Which brings us to Tesla Model 3 Performance. For those of you who heard of this car or already may have it, it's obviously a very, very fast car. I'm not going to get into the numbers. Again, you can look everything up. It is definitely a very fast car. The fastest car that I've owned thus far, and like I said, I've had some very fast cars, and this is definitely tops them all. It's not very light car, obviously, because it's an EV. It has batteries to thank for that. However, it is very nimble. The suspension on it is very, very stiff, for better or for worse. And but it does feel like a very, very solid car, very quick, not just in straight line, but also very nice in the corners. And again, you can look up at the track times for the Model 3 Performance, and you'll be surprised how fast this car really is. And this is comparing it to cars like RS3s, RS4s, and M3s, and so on and so forth, right? So it definitely holds its own on the track and in the straight line quarter mile as well. So again, performance was a factor, and of course the day-to-day usability. I already have a charger in my house, but there's like I mentioned, there's tons and tons of superchargers in the area and in the country. So when it comes to range anxiety for the Tesla, it's non-existent. Also, what Tesla does very, very well is when you make your routes, it will do all the calculations for you. It knows all the Tesla chargers in the area or on your trip, so it will route you as it sees appropriate based on your pre-calculated range at certain locations. So again, this is one thing that Tesla does super, super well, is their network locations for their superchargers, and the way it does calculations of the routes. It's second to none, basically. Which brings us to the third and final point of this video, is what's next. Obviously, as you know, again, I like working on cars, I like to modify them, same thing goes with my motorcycle. There's not too much you can do as far as the performance of the EV. You can't do anything, again, with exhaust, you can't do anything with the engine. It is what it is. However, there's a bunch of other things you can still do to them, and the aftermarket for Teslas right now is really, really big. So there you can do tons of exterior modifications to it, or changes, I should say, not really modifications. Interior, there's tons of accessories you can do for the car, as well as suspension work. So yes, it's the suspension is pretty nice on it, and the wheels are very nice on it, but I'm not really sure if I'm going to do anything with the wheels and tires at this point. We'll have to wait and see, but again, there are things you can do to the suspension. There's tons of stuff you could do for interior and exterior, and that is really what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking to make this my own. So it looks fine as it is right now, especially in its performance version. However, again, there are a bunch of things already that have been ordered and waiting to be ordered, and I can't wait to start making this car my own. So definitely stay tuned to future videos. I have quite a few things that are going to be coming up. So hopefully this video cleared some things up for some of you guys. Sorry to disappoint some of you who subscribed to my channel and loved my 1LE. I did as well, but again, you know, life goes on and things change and priorities change, and we are where we are. This is, I think, is a pretty exciting car, at least to me, and I'm looking forward, like I said, to making it my own. Was the modifications that I have in my mind, and hopefully this was useful to some of you guys who are planning or looking at least at EV market and different cars, and you know, whether it's Tesla or something else. So do stay tuned for a bunch of videos coming up with different modifications that I'm going to be doing to it. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.